Hello everyone and welcome along to MarketsMadeClear.com. It is Wednesday the 19th of January 2022, and in this video I want to bring you some news of new contracts that we have added to our Commitment of Traders platform. Some of you regulars on the platform may have noticed the addition already. We added these last week. We now have three within the crypto complex. We have Bitcoin, we have the Bitcoin micro contract, and we also now have the Ethereum contract. So I want to bring you up to speed with what that information is telling us and essentially the state of play within those markets and what it likely means for them going forward in the near future. Those of you who may be familiar with the futures contracts will know that there is an Ethereum micro contract that was only released a couple of weeks ago. There's very little data from it to actually glean from it, but we will look to add that in the not too distant future. We'll start off with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin standard contract we've had for a while. The futures themselves started back in 2019, so we've been able to use the info from the standard contract for quite some time. But we'll do a bit of a recap from the more recent times so we can actually get up to speed to where we currently are. Zooming into the commercial contracts here to begin with, first of all, we'll start by going from the lows in July. We consolidated here from quite a period of time. We've seen the commercials start to be heavy buyers down just around that 30,000 mark. Heavy buyers in here, while essentially the non-commercials were leaving the markets. We've seen quite low levels of open interest back then, which is a nice bullish condition. Heavy buying on the commercial side, and we started to move higher. We've seen a nice run up, and then we started to retrace back into that 40,000 area, and that would just be prior to that. We've seen the commercials cutting those longs and adding in those shorts, showing us their need to hedge for at least some short-term weakness. We did have that, and very quickly the commercials rolled over those short contracts and began buying again, and they continued to be buyers up towards the highs. We took out the previous highs, getting up to 67,000, 68,000 price level, and they were heavy buyers in here. But something happened towards the end of November in particular. We've seen a big drop on the buy side, the commercials. Previously they had clearly seen the need to hedge for price movement. The commercials typically hedge for future price, and they were seeing the need to be heavy buyers in this market, therefore telling us they're hedging that future price increases. But something happened in here in November, and they completely disappeared on the long side as the market dropped down to pretty much where the levels we're currently at. And similar, if we actually look into where we are now with the Ethereum, or a very similar picture that we have on the Ethereum contract. Again, if we just would begin with the commercials, you'll see very similar to the lows back in July in the summer. They very quickly got net long when there were heavy buyers throughout the rally as Ethereum pushed to a new high up towards that 4,800 mark, and there were heavy buyers. So both Ethereum, the commercial traders in Ethereum and Bitcoin, actually just bring up the two together. They were seeing a very similar picture across both, and the commercials in both markets were very much of the opinion they needed to hedge for future price, and the heavy buyers in here at both times. But in both markets we can see the buying really drop. You'll see the Ethereum went from 500 contracts to zero in the space of a couple of weeks, just prior to the continuation and Ethereum's acceleration of that move to the downside. So something clearly happened in here, or some new information came to hand for the commercials in these markets, and they have very much now disappeared away from the buy side. The short side, definitely a big increase. We got an all-time high in the commercial shorts just going back a couple of weeks ago, prior to the last drop back into that 40,000 in Bitcoin. Shorts have not continued to push higher. They've stabilized in this area, which is good in terms of if you are still bullish in this market. They're not seeing the need to continue to add into the short side, but they are still dropping on the buy side. So again, they're not accumulating here just yet, at least. So not particularly bullish, and not screaming sell either, but there would be a bearish bias at the moment unless there can be a change of the rolls from the short contracts dropping over, just like we did back here in October, August, September last year. We need to see an increase of the buying and those short contracts roll over. Similar picture in Ethereum that we're seeing. Again, the commercials have disappeared on the long side, but they're not particularly heavy on the short side. There have been a slight increase here, but they're low levels of actual shorting at this area. We're sitting above the 3,000 level. Nice little area for Ethereum, both nice levels for Ethereum and Bitcoin. So again, it's not a screaming sell or screaming bearish, but it's not bullish. I think there is the short-term bias to the downside, and the best case scenario is possibly that we can accumulate and range around current levels for a couple of weeks. Historically, January isn't a great month. We don't typically see huge movement, but if we get into February, March and April, they can be a little bit more positive, and there has been a lot more positive bias going into those months. If we can accumulate over the next couple of weeks and we start to see commercial buy interest pick up over the next couple of weeks, that would be a very strong indication that we can actually end the current bearish bias and actually begin to possibly make a new beginnings of a new uptrend. Something as well to keep a very close eye on is what the activity of the non-commercials at the moment, and that is, if we take a close look at what they're actually doing, they are still net short on both Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they are accumulating in here. They're actually cutting short contracts, and they're starting to edge towards being net long, particularly if we look in Bitcoin. They have always been net short. They have always, you see the red line and the green line, the red line being the short contracts, the green line being the long contracts. They have always been net short because the red line is above the green, but we're getting very, very close in here. And obviously, if you're familiar with crypto, you will know that we had the ETF that was launched actually just back here at the highs, and we have definitely seen a change in the market. And I think there's a new type of trader, there's a new participant entering in this market. You actually see the accumulation, and we're very, very close. We've been edging higher and higher, and we're just a few hundred contracts. You actually see we're minus 377 contracts. You can see over here in the net. So we're edging very, very close to that net long scenario, and I think that would be a very bullish condition. It'd be something that hasn't happened in any of the crypto markets yet, where we see the non-commercials actually go net long. So that's something to be paying very close attention to. It is interesting that at this level, just sitting above that 40,000 area, that they are starting to accumulate, and they're cutting more of the short contracts than they are the longs. We're very, very close to actually getting net long. So there's a couple of things to be mindful of at the moment. Certainly the bias will be to the downside. If we look at the actual daily price chart here for the Bitcoin futures, we're sitting at a really, really crucial level, just around that 41,000 area. I think there is the possibility we could see an attempted breakdown into around the mid 30s. It'll be a case of then looking, do the commercials use that as an opportunity actually to accumulate, to start to be buyers again. As I said a while ago, this is really the bullish scenario at the moment. I don't see enough in terms of the buying coming in on either side to really suggest we can start a rally just yet. But if we could accumulate and range here for another couple of weeks, we possibly could build into something in February. As I say, seasonally, it does get a little bit more positive, or a lot more positive February, March and April. Typically summer is a little bit weaker, but we are heading into a period where historically we have performed quite well. And if you want to take a closer look at the seasonal charts, by all means jump in and actually go through the seasonal charts themselves. But the COT data, the key thing, this is obviously Wednesday. We'll have the new data will be released on Friday from the CFTC. We'll see if there's a change in sentiment. Do buyers start to return? Do the non-commercials go net long? So there's a lot of things to look out for. And so it's not completely done and dusted, and as long as we remain above that 40,000, there is still that hope that we can keep, the buyers can hold that area, and we actually begin to move higher as we get into February. As it stands at the moment, I'm not looking to be a buyer. I wouldn't also look to be a seller until we can get below that 41,000 level. And if we can get below, then yes, I think we'll have a pop down into that, at least the mid 30s, if not the 30 itself. But if we can accumulate and build here, and if this week's data released on Friday can look a little bit more positive, then yes, there is a possibility we'll be looking for a break to the upside, but we're a little bit early for that. Keep an eye on those data. As I say, it will be released on Friday. It'll be updated Friday night UK time on the website. So check it out at the weekend, see if there's any major sentiment changes, and definitely keep an eye on the net position of these non-commercials. Are they slowly building for that net long? That first time we've seen that, that'll be a really, really positive addition and development within the market.